Right. Good morning, everyone. A little bit late. We apologize for that, but we're going to get right on track here. This morning, we are with you to continue the work on our comprehensive rezoning. And then just for those that are tuning in that thought perhaps there was something else going on today, at 1 o'clock this afternoon, we will be back on the air for our open session, which typically would be on Thursday. But as a result of Thanksgiving this week, we pushed it to Tuesday. So got a few agenda items on there. We'll get a COVID update this afternoon, but it's sort of a brief session, but we wanted the opportunity to do that and not have a long period of time off. So with that, as we always do, we will rise for the pledge this morning. And Chris, I believe you've got that up, and let's all rise for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks, everybody. We're getting so used to that moment of silence that I didn't even have to ask for it this morning. Well done. All right, we're going to roll right into comprehensive rezoning because I think we have at least a dozen to get through today. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Linda Eisenberg. Linda? And Linda, you're muted, so you're going to have to check your gear up in the right-hand corner. Apparently your setting's not, I'm getting so used to saying that too. Nope, still nothing. Nope. Chris, you want to jump on, Chris?
Sure, I'm here. Lynn, if you maybe leave and enter the environment again, that might do it, or check your gear wheel and make sure that your webcam microphone is on. Can't hear you. You can always just call in with your cell phone also. We can't hear you. We don't hear you.
Hey, Linda, until you get that taken care of, there's Mary. I was going to say, let's hand it off to Mary.
Sure. We were going to start today with, and Linda can still work the slides. We're going to start today with number 22, and this finishes up the 29 applications that we've had for this comprehensive rezoning. And I'm going to turn this over to Price Wagner.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Price. Go ahead.
This is the first of many we'll have this afternoon.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
Yeah, Linda, we got you now.
Hello?
Yeah, we got you now, Linda.
All right, so the first two I'll be presenting. This is C207 2020 0022.
Did everyone leave?
Everybody's here.
We can all hear you.
Oh, good. Bye. I can't see anyone.
All right. Boca 4 LLC, Ag, requesting to go to C2. Next slide, Linda. The location of this property is just north of the city of Westminster on Littlestown Pike. This property is also Pretty Bird. This property was also the old site of the North Carroll Community School before it moved and was built over on Stone Road. Next slide. As you can see, again, this property is just north of the priority funding area and the corporate limits of the city of Westminster. Currently, the property is vacant. I believe there actually may be a church potentially getting ready to go in on the site. When we went by to repost it, I believe there was a sign up that said there was a church looking to go there. But the site previously was a church, and then it was the North Carroll Community School. Next slide. Here is a shot from Google Earth using Street View. Looking into the site, you can see the building up the driveway. Next slide. So the existing zoning in this area is agricultural. Below that, obviously, is the city of Westminster, which that is mostly commercial industrial zone properties. And across the street, we have R40,000, and then just behind the R40,000 to the southwest of Pleasant Valley Road, we have I-1. Next slide. Future land use for this property is to be agricultural still. And you'll see majority of the properties in and around the area are agricultural, with some conservation up in the northwest corner, as well as still have the industrial, and then of course what is in the city of Westminster, in that area right near the airport, which is where you have Kenora Break and those institutions. Next slide. So C2, Commercial Medium Intensity District. The purpose of the C2 district is to provide locations for a diverse range of medium intensity retail, service, and professional offices, uses needed by a larger population than what could be provided in the C1. This district also is intended to provide locations for compatible institutional and recreational uses, limited residential, and some of the general neighborhood uses associated with the C1. Should we have bicycle out and pedestrian access, it could occur. And as you may remember from last week with the Maryland Mallet, this is on Maryland 97. So access could, I think there's bike lanes that may end just shy of this if they did the lighting of 97. So there may be potential of more bicycle and pedestrian access. But again, that's really up to any site plans and then of course, the State Highway Association. Now, the finding of consistency. This property is not consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended. The request is contrary to goals 14 and 15. Goal 14 is facilitate a development pattern that remains consistent with the fabric of our communities, is in harmony with the surrounding built and natural environment, encourages community interaction, and in rural areas preserves the county's rural character. Goal 15 is to pursue policies that facilitate development in appropriate areas, including the designated growth areas, thereby protecting and conserving agricultural and environmental resources, preserving open space, and providing public facilities and services efficiently and cost effectively. And again, this property is just outside the designated growth area of the city of Westminster. Both staff and the Planning Commission offer an unfavorable recommendation. Although the property is not currently in agricultural use, uses previously located on this property, which were a church and a school, are permitted uses in the ag district, as are a number of similar commercial uses such as recreation centers, daycare centers, and vet clinics. There are also a number of other commercial uses that are considered appropriate for the ag district and are allowed with conditional use approval. Changing this property from ag zoning to the C2 zoning category would allow all the more intense commercial uses in section 158.082 of the county code on the property, which is surrounded by ag zone land. This was not envisioned by the 2014 plan or the 2019 amendment to that plan. Next slide. We have not received any public comment to date for this property. I believe finally is the discussion portion. Is there any questions at this time?
Hey, Price, what's the property next door zoned as, where Piney Creek Services is located?
That is also zoned agricultural.
Okay, and they're operating a landscaping business out of there at the present time as a non-conforming use. Is that right?
I believe I'll have to do some research to verify that, but I believe that may be correct. I'll look at the BZA cases to see.
Okay, and this is not in, there's no planned water or sewer service for this property. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Any other questions on 22? All right, I guess we'll move on. Linda, are you up? You have a hot mic now, Linda?
I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yes.
That's okay. Was there, before we get to 23, was there anything you wanted to interject as a result of opening up this morning? Or are we good? Just keep going.
No, we're good. Let's just keep going and we'll wrap up with what the next steps are at the end of this. We only have 10 properties to go through this morning. These are the final ones. And so we'll just have a wrap up at the end. So thank you. Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem. Okay. All right, 23, I guess is next. Go ahead. Price,
It is.
go ahead.
Finally, final one for me, I-2-11-2020-0023. This is Defense Farm Services, Inc., requesting to go from ag to I-2. This property, Finch Farm Services owns, is off of Maryland 51, Maryland 31. And this property actually is split zone. The front portion of the property, which is actually what you see is shaded in yellow and within the growth area boundary, is currently zoned industrial. The portion of the property that for this request is the portion that is outlined in blue. It's off of Medford Road and Old New Windsor Pike, just off of Maryland 31. Next slide. So this is a photo, again, using Google Street View from, this is Medford Road, looking pretty much northeast up Maryland 31. The property in question actually begins back in the tree line. You'll see up through this field, you see the tree line back there. That's sort of the beginning portion of the property of this particular portion that's being requested to be rezoned. Next slide. This is on Medford Road looking towards Maryland 31. So you'll see majority of the site in this area is cropland at this point in time. You'll see the row of trees in the back that actually splits the other portion that is part of this request. There is a tree line that goes up sort of through the middle of this property. And you'll see a residential house right here in the corner. Next slide. This is roughly the same vantage point, but now looking towards Old New Windsor Pike. You'll see the property does go slope upwards from Medford Road to the tree line, which on the backside of the tree line is additional portion of this property that's looking to be rezoned. Next slide. This is looking from Old New Windsor Pike. You have Medford Road to the right, looking up into the property. And again, you can see how the property does slope upwards. The topography does increase as you go from Medford Road into the property. Next slide. And this final photo is from Old New Windsor Pike, looking into the property. These trees are actually just on the outside of the property that's in question to being, as requesting to be rezoned. Next slide. So again, the existing zoning, as I said before, is split zoned. You have the front portion of the property is I2, which if you remember that in the aerial photo is heavily wooded, and the portion of the property that is the request is for is currently zoned agricultural, and at this time it appears to be cropland. I believe actually when we went to post the signs, there was corn that was had just been harvested that was on site. Next slide. The future land use for this, again, is the industrial, and this is a sort of an industrial corridor on Maryland 31, off of Medford Road. You have the quarry down on the southwest or due south. You have Performance Foods, as well as the wastewater treatment plant area for the city of Westminster, and some other commercial industrial type uses on this particular area. Again, going up Medford on the north side of Maryland 31 is majority all agricultural zoning and land use. Next slide. So this property is surrounded by ag preservation. You have mouth easements, as well as land trust easements, Carroll County easements, and this particular portion of the property, again, which is where the request is for, is actually part of the Little Pipe Creek Rural Legacy Area. So heavy industrial. The purpose of the I-2 is to provide locations for certain types of non-agricultural, non-residential, and non-commercial activities characterized by heavy manufacturing, refining, processing, compounding of materials, or products predominantly from raw materials. This district may also accommodate some light manufacturing uses that are allowed in the I-1. The uses associated with this district are intensive and frequently include operations that emit strong odors, loud noises, some level of dust, vibration, smoke, soot, vapors. It is intended for that these properties in this district be located with access to major thoroughfares or other major modes of transportation, depending on the specific demands of the industry being served. It is not the purpose of this district to promote or encourage the use of land within the district for retail services, planned commercial centers, or similar uses typically expected to be located within commercial districts. Next slide. So there was a BZA case that occurred, and all this should be in your packet that you received and forwarded. It was BZA case 726. It was for a conditional use to permit an establishment of a bituminous concrete mixing plant. This is back in May of 1972. The BZA at the time denied the request. And one of the main reasons they looked to do the deny was based actually upon the observation of Medford Road, the intersection of Medford Road and Maryland 31, and testimony pertaining therefore is the opinion of the board that the proposed operation of the concrete mixing plant would result in dangerous traffic conditions. Therefore, and in accordance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, the request to establish a bituminous concrete mixing plant is denied. And when they went out and looked at the site, and you'll see on the slide right here, which is the preliminary grading plan that was provided by the applicant. The site is, again, the portion in the very front is heavily wooded. You can see the grades show where the access, even though the property is located off of Maryland 31, the access appears to be coming off of Medford Road. And it just next door, in the vicinity next door to some residential houses. You can see that in the sort of almost the middle of Medford Road aspect. The property appears to have two separate usable areas. I'm not sure what they're looking to potentially do, but they're showing two separate usable areas on site, one for just a little over 10 acres and one that is roughly 13 acres, again, with access off of Medford Road. Next slide. Environmental constraints. This sort of goes back to the heavily wooded forested area, which is the section that is currently zoned industrial. You also have some of that property within some of that forest as well as steep slopes within the property that is being requested, as well as in the middle, and then of course on the very back end. All those, if you can remember by looking at the photos, you can see the forested areas in all the photos of what's going on. Next slide. So finding of consistency. This property is not consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. The request is contrary to goals 14 and 15 in the Carroll County Master Plan. Goal 14 facilitates a development pattern that remains consistent with the fabric of our communities, is in harmony with the surrounding built and natural environments, encourages community interaction, and in rural areas preserves the county's rural character. Going back to 15, goal 15, this goal pursues policies that facilitate development in appropriate areas, including the designated growth areas, thereby protecting and conserving agricultural and environmental resources, preserving open space, and providing public facilities and services efficiently and cost effectively. Next slide. So both the staff and planning commission forward an unfavorable recommendation. This property is split zoned with the requested portion designated agricultural in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. The requested portion is primarily outside of the Westminster growth area. There is no direct access to Maryland 31. The preliminary grading study, which we looked at previously, shows access via Medford Road. The requested portion is surrounded by ag preservation on 3 sides. Furthermore, it lies within the Little Pipe Creek Rural Legacy area. Next slide. And the department has received 1 phone call and 5 email comments in opposition. Those comments mainly go towards there is no good access to Maryland 31. The intersection at Medford Road and Maryland 31 is already a dangerous area. Both Medford Road and Old New Windsor Pike are narrow. In some of the comments, it says the road is roughly 16 feet in width. And there's also, at this point in time, there is no access to water and or sewer. And I believe there is not any plan to put water and or sewer on this particular portion of the site. There was 1 letter in support, and that came from the Carroll County EDC. And are there any questions at this time?
I got a couple of questions and comments. How many properties do we have in Carroll County that are currently split zoned? Is it is this one of a kind, or is there just 2 or 3 that are out there?
Commissioner, we don't have an exact number on that, but we do have a lot of properties throughout the county that are split zoned.
I'm curious how many of them are split zoned between ag and industrial. And I appreciate the surrounding areas being preserved. Question is there any intent of a landowner to preserve that property? It sounds like if there's not, and that's why he wants to go industrial, to conform to the business that's right on 31. And across the street from 31 is all industrial. So, we've heard from Mr. Liburn the concern of usable industrial space within the county. And this may be, an extension of that to keep an industrial park going. It's just on the other side of 31. I'm kind of torn on this one, not in the sense of making a decision, obviously today, but understanding the rationale, what's best for both the landowner and the county when it comes to industrial space. Trying to think if there's anything else I just want to share. You use the terms fabric and harmony in the goals. Well, that can also go in the same sense of fabric and harmony within the industrial space. It puts together the industrial space that is being used off of 31 on both sides. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking through in my head is I really like the mouth easements. I really like that agricultural, piece. But if there's no incentive or intent, or not incentive, intent for this property, this 35 acres, to go that direction, then why are we trying to hold off on this one? So, just opening thoughts.
Ed, I would look at the land, drive out there and look at the how it's set in the roads. They made some really valid points.
Say, Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this, the main argument against for the unfavorable recommendation was the fact that Old New Windsor Pike being a smaller road. So I'm looking at this map, and if we go back to the map portion where if we can do that, Price. Yes.
Yeah, I think Linda's got that.
Okay, somebody. If you look at anyway, there's a house back there. If you can go straight, keep going. That's good. Either one, that's fine. Oh, look at Old New Windsor Pike, where it kind of bends forward toward 31, the outline. If you went straight across there and kept all those trees there, make it IA up until that point. And then that last portion or toward Old New Windsor Pike, where the trees are and where the house is, keep it ag. That way, that area is not going to be industrial. That way, that area is not going to be IA. And from what I remember, and Ed, you can correct me, most of the discussion about why that got unfavorable was because of the impact right adjacent to or right against Old New Windsor Pike being, the type of road and all it is. So you could keep that character of Old New Windsor Pike because you have the trees still there, and the rest of it could be IA. And like it is split zone, there's a lot of IA around it. So anyway, I don't know. We can go.
You're right, Dennis. That was a lot of the discussion was the infrastructure, and we're going to be having a lot of that discussion on other properties that are being requested for zoning on the infrastructure. The challenge is that traffic studies aren't done, until after a development is put in front of them, and it's that chicken and the egg, situation that I find ourselves in often. And sometimes we got to look at, okay, what is the infrastructure first, and then look at the potential developments, even though there's nothing, said that's going to be developed here yet. But yeah, right, that was the conversation.
Right. And I was thinking, thank you, Ed. I was thinking if we could maybe go back to the property owner and ask them if they would consider having IA only go to that particular portion and leave the other portion agriculture for that one side that goes against Old New Windsor Pike. I think that'd be much more favorable. But it's up to him. He could say yes, he could say no. It's only a small portion. Acres wide, I couldn't even tell you how many acres it is, but it doesn't look to be very big. So that would be my suggestion. Maybe go back to the land property owner. Can you take IA up to that particular point and like a straight line across where that jagged part is, where those trees are along Old New Windsor Pike? See if he's okay with that before we make a vote on it. Of course, we're not voting today, but.
I'm torn about this as well. This is in my district, and I went out and toured the property with the owner, Mr. Finch, and his counselor, Mr. McGuire. And it's agriculture. It's surrounded by land, a lot of land that's preserved. My biggest concern is the two residents that live down on the two corners, the corner of Old New Windsor Pike and the corner of New Windsor Road. I understand their concern. They don't want an industrial facility encroaching upon their homes. And the one woman's Mrs. Bale. She wrote a handwritten letter to me, which I was very impressed with this day and age. So the planning and zoning might not have received that handwritten letter yet, but I had seen it. And actually, when I was out there touring the property, Mr. Melvin Bale and Ralph Robertson showed up. They were out doing some farming on their ATV and stopped in and talked to us as well. I'm all about expanding their industrial base and linking it to existing industrial area, which this shows. But I like the idea that Commissioner Frazier has offered about some sort of compromise. I think we have to find some sort of compromise here to help out with the development of the land and protect individuals that are there. So hopefully the owner can come back to us with some sort of realignment of what they want forecasted out. And I'd love to try to find a compromise to help protect my constituents down there on those two corner pieces of property. It is beautiful land. It sits way up on a bluff. And I don't think the owner has any plans on preserving his ag land. I think eventually he'll want to get this all situated to be in equal zoning with the neighboring properties. How long out that would take to get it actually developed, who knows? But I do favor the idea of some of this property turning industrial. Thank you.
Commissioner Boucher, I believe everyone too should have received that yesterday. I did send you all the comments that we received from when you got your booklets until what we had yesterday. So you should have that handwritten letter, everyone. Thank you.
In the discussion, I don't have any comments, just a question. In the discussions that were being done about this property, was it brought up that Medford and 31 is one of, if not the most dangerous intersection in Carroll County?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Steve, your comment, is very valid, but it kind of goes back to what I've been saying about other properties. Looking at the infrastructure and the traffic studies while we're going through this, understanding why we're doing it, as opposed to making a decision on the zoning and then looking at the development. And once the development is desired, then looking at the traffic and looking at the situation. And sometimes we're just moving things in the wrong direction. So we just got to keep looking at that. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would argue that is the complete wrong direction. We've had many accidents at that location. We've had multiple deaths at that location. And leading up to this, nothing really has ever been done. So now we want to look at it to do what's going to change the mindset? I'm just wondering how many more people have to be severely injured or lose their life at 32 or 31 in Medford. That's the only reason I asked the question.
Yeah. No, I get you. It's just on the other side of 31 is all industrial. On the corner of Medford and 31, correct?
Agreed, which is why the intersection should have been upgraded way before now. And now we're going to add to it possibly. That's my only.
Yeah. Okay.
That was my question / comment. Sorry.
Yeah. No, good.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Mary Lane, who is going to present to C207 20200024.
Thank you.
Hey, Linda, I apologize. Just before you go on, my history or my experience with Anne Arundel County, when developers were looking at properties like this, it would be asked to them in developing an intersection or, part of the infrastructure. That may be something also just to keep in our minds, since we don't have, or the state may not have this as the highest priority, looking at before it gets developed, getting a developer involved. So that's all.
So again, I think, it goes back to what we've talked about all along, traffic studies and what would be required by State Highway Administration. So if this site were to be rezoned to industrial heavy, they would require some type of traffic study to be done. And there may be some mitigation and intersection upgrades and improvements that would have to come about as part of any site plan that's reviewed prior to any development. They would have to do that on 31.
I'm wondering if long-term, if the site does get rezoned, maybe if that would be the motivation to finally fix that intersection on Medford, because Commissioner Wance is making a very valid point. So we just had a fatality there with Steve, was it the last year? 2 women got hit there. if this could in some way put pressure on or motivate that intersection being fixed, that would be a big help to all of us. And I like the fact that State Highway Administration would have to come in and get involved in this if that site was ever to be developed. Just because it's been rezoned doesn't mean it's getting developed instantly. We all are aware there's a very long, drawn-out process. I think it's important for our constituents to understand that isn't instantaneous, that there's a lot of planning and foresight and analysis that goes into this. And I'd like to see potentially if this can motivate fixing that intersection that Commissioner Wance has mentioned. Being an emergency service, he's quite aware of that intersection.
All right, so Mayor, if you want to go ahead and do your presentation for 002.
Yes. The applicant is Dana Kiker Jr., and his request is to go from the Ag District to C2. As you can see from the location map, this is at the intersection of Maryland 32 and Maryland 97. It is approximately 12 acres. It has always been in the Ag District, and it is currently unimproved. Looking at the aerial, you can see it is just south of the YMCA. There is several assisted living facilities directly to the east, and it has residential properties to the west. It is just outside of the Westminster growth area and the priority funding area. This photo was the other photo was taken from the intersection of Maryland 32 and 97. Linda, is it possible to get back into the presentation?
Yeah, it just decided to crash on me, so I'm
Wait a minute.
working on getting it up. Enjoying Monterey coastline.
If that's 32 and 97, I'm not gonna vote in favor of any change. That's
I was about to say there's no environmental constraints either, so I'm probably gonna have to take that back. But on the other property, there are no environmental constraints other than some minimal steep slopes or minimal slopes.
If those are minimally steep slopes, I think we live in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Actually, I lived out there for 2 years. It looks like a beautiful spring day with all that fog.
Monterey.
Opening. Chris, can you have me re-share my screen for whatever reason? There we go. I'm gonna have Chris give me control to share my screen again.
You're still presenter.
Okay. It's not liking me today.
Well, let me try something. All right. I changed you back. You should be presenter again, Linda. Give that a try. IT gremlins.
Yeah, it's not letting me share my screen.
Can you email it to me?
No, it is 124 megs.
Okay.
Mary, can you pull it up on your screen and maybe give Mary presenter?
Could
Yeah,
try
does
that.
anyone else in your staff have it?
Yeah, everyone does. It's on our network. Yeah, my computer's not cooperating. All right, I'm gonna I don't know what's happening here. I think I'm gonna have to
I made Mary presenter.
Yeah, you may or presenter, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it up first though from the drive. Hold on.
That was your friendly commercial.
That was a better image.
So just for those watching, in case you weren't paying attention there, we're experiencing some difficulties with the presentation. So we'd ask everybody just to sort of stand by a little bit here.
Hi, Chris. Could you make me presenter? We're gonna try my screen now because Mary can't get it open.
There you go, Hannah. Give that a try.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're on property number 24, Hannah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So Hannah, if you could go to the picture, the photo, it's about 4 slides in.
This one?
Yes, no, one more. Thank you. And that's where we left off. As I said, there's almost no environmental constraints on this property, and this was taken from Maryland 97 and Maryland 32. Next slide.
Okay.
Thank you. The existing zoning surrounding this property is all ag with the exception of the conservation to the north. But again, it is not necessarily all ag use. There's assisted living to the east, there's residential to the west, and the YMCA, and farther north, the community college. Next slide. The future land use surrounding this property is mostly ag. You see to the north, the suburban residential, that is from the Westminster plan, which is due to be updated. Again, this request is for the C2. I won't read through this, but this is our medium intensity commercial district, which is intended to be for retail, service, and professional office uses. The finding of consistency for this property is that it is consistent with Chapter 15 goal of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan, which is to promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities, focusing on the development and redevelopment of existing vacant and underutilized commercial and industrial properties. Both the staff and Planning Commission gave this a favorable recommendation for the reasons listed on this slide. It's immediately outside the city of Westminster growth area boundary. It's at the intersection of 2 urban arterial roadways and is immediately outside existing water and sewer service areas with lines in the immediate vicinity. The uses on the surrounding properties are institutional, recreation, and group residential. It is only 12 acres in size and does not abut land used for agricultural purposes. And it is consistent with the economic development goals and implementation strategies of the Carroll County Master Plan. We did receive one written comment in August from a Mr. John Backus, who told us that his wife and he live across the road at 1750 Sykesville Road, and they would be most affected by this change, as particularly regarding traffic, and the entrance would be directly across the street from his home. Mr. Backus also spoke to you at the listening session on October 29th, but we've received no other comments regarding this request.
Just a question, the location of this property at a red light, on the roads they're on, why didn't they pursue industrial rather than C2 on this one?
I can't answer that. I'm not really sure, because in requesting the rezoning, they do not have to say what they intend to do with the property. So they must have just felt that the C2 is the appropriate designation for this property. I would also say that the I2 is the heaviest, the most intense of all the districts, so that to ask for I2 with all that ag surrounding it, I think would be a bigger ask than asking for C2.
All right, next up, I'm not hearing
Okay.
anymore. Let's roll.
Yep. So the next is EC 1420200025. These series of properties are owned by the Board of County Commissioners, and the request is Ag to Employment Campus. These properties are located off of Clees Mill Road, north of 26, and across from the industrial park area that is located in the South Carroll Industrial Park. As you can see from the aerial image, the properties in question are outlined in blue. These are formerly known as the Delaney properties, and they total 117 acres. If you recall, request 0001 was ABAR Partnership, formerly known as the Legacy School. That is off of Terrapin Drive, and this is the back of that section of properties. This property has been agriculturally zoned since 1965, although part of it is in the Freedom Designated Growth Area and Priority Funding Area, and at one point was designated to be a middle school site, but the Board of Education no longer needed the site. And so that was when we were doing the Freedom Master Plan, looked at the Edlin study that we spoke about last time and felt that this was an appropriate area to have additional employment campus land use designation. You can go to the next slide, please, Hannah. So as you can see, the properties are currently zoned agriculture. And again, to the west is that I-1 industrial area. Much of that is developed. There are a few undeveloped pad sites still remaining in that section along Clees Mill Road to the west. So as you can see from the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan, the three properties have an employment campus land use designation. To the east is a residential medium land use designation. To the north is conservation. And to the south are Lytton Spring Elementary and Century High School, as well as to the west is that industrial area. Again, the purpose and intent of the Employment Campus District is to provide for and foster comprehensively planned employment campus centers, to have it in an employment campus-like setting to attract employers and highly skilled workers with higher paying jobs to the area, while also providing more flexible approach to design and development in this district. The integration of trails, sidewalks, communal plazas, and shared amenities is encouraged. So the finding of consistency for this property is that the property meets the following goals from the Freedom 2018 Community Comprehensive Plan, is to pursue and facilitate policies that facilitate the implementation of the plan's visions, including development and appropriate areas within density limits with respect to the overall vision of the community, where water, sewer, and other infrastructure are projected to be available. In the triennial water and sewer master plan update, this property was put into the water and sewer priority areas. The goal too is to allow appropriately timed and scaled development, which supports, enhances, respects, and reinforces the identity and character of the Freedom Community Planning Area. And goal 4, to facilitate economic development opportunities that support the local skilled workforce and entrepreneurs, and to expand the county's employment tax base. Again, as I stated earlier, this property was one of the key properties identified in that earlier 2007 economic development study that we presented to you at a prior meeting. Hannah, next slide, please. Both staff and Planning Commission gave this a favorable recommendation due to its consistency with the Freedom Plan, the future land use as expressed in the plan, the situation within the Freedom Designated Growth Area, and priority funding area. the proximity to future water and sewer make this an ideal candidate for an employment campus zoning. There are environmental constraints on the property, mainly being forest cover. Due to the property being undeveloped, forest cover is expected, but it's also 117 acres, and forest cover only make up a smaller percentage of the properties, mostly in the northwest quadrant of the first parcel 16. And also on parcel 490 along Roundsdale also has some forest land on it. So we have received 2 additional written comments since your booklets were distributed in opposition. The concerns were lack of notice of the rezoning, increased traffic, lower property values, wildlife, water wells, and potential for increased crime in the area. And that is all I have to present on this property for you. Are there any questions?
Linda, the water tower, that's in the parcel 490, correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. And then east of the proposed employment campus, the land use has residential medium density, which is, west of Linton. Is that, is somebody looking at that for development at this point, or is it just land use? I mean, nobody's ever talked about that.
We have not, so not to go out of order, but we have not really gone through the full residential process like we did with commercial industrial. If we recall from the commissioner's discussion back in July, the 2 properties are coming forward now for the residential by request prior to the text. So we did not open it up to all the properties for a change. So this property has not come forward with anything because they have not had the opportunity yet.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thanks. That's all I got.
Yeah, but during the plan, the Freedom Plan, these property owners were made aware of their land use change, and there was no, at that time, there were no issues with the land use change.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Rothstein, have you had a chance to go out and tour this property yet?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the property. It's a ideal location for an employment campus, and it really does put things together, from the Legacy School on the west to Century and Linton Springs in the south, to when it's going to tie into that residential area to the east of it. So a lot of good use can be seen in this 100+ acres.
I love hearing you say that you went out there and checked it out. If you don't mind, I might get a hold of Mr. Lyburn and arrange myself to go out there. It's your district. I just want to let you know. I'd like to go out there and check it out as well. Give us a lot of positive information.
This was originally purchased, I believe, for a middle school area or future schools. The school system says they don't need it. They won't be needing it. It's county owned already. It is probably the logical site for employment campus here, and especially with surrounding areas there. It's already been kind of developed for traffic and those type things. So I know it's going to increase traffic on 26, but probably the most logical use for it.
All right, if we have no other questions, we're going to move on to C103-2020-0027, North Carroll Community School, and Cody Spade will be presenting.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, Cody, we got you. You're good. You're good.
Awesome. Just wanted to make sure. Today I'm presenting you the North Carroll Community School. This is the current location for the North Carroll Community School, not to be confused with the previous location that Price had presented earlier today. The location number is C1-03-2020-0027. The property is situated at 401 Stone Road, north of Westminster on the northern half of 97, to the right there. Here's an aerial map of the site. As you can see, situated right in between 97 and Stone Road. And here's a picture of the facility as it currently sits. And as you can see from the existing zoning, to the north and south, there's both ag land abutting the property. However, there are a few C2 parcels all along Route 97 there, one to the north and two smaller properties to the south, as well as ag to the east and west of the property. And moving along to the future land use, as you can see, pretty similar. Those C2 parcels, the one to the north is used as a daycare center, as well as the C2 parcels to the south are used for a automobile service center, as well as ag and residential that surrounds the property, as well as to the east across 97. You'll see conservation land there as well, which is the Carroll Sports Complex across 97. The requested zoning is for the C2 district, which is the medium intensity district for commercial, and is for a diverse range of medium intensity retail service professional offices needed by a larger population than those of the C1 district. This property is designated agriculture in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019, and is immediately surrounded by land designated for architecture or agriculture, excuse me. It is also in the priority preservation area, and the request is not consistent with the future land use of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan. It is not specifically consistent with goals 14 and 15 of the plan. 14 states to facilitate a development pattern that remains consistent with the fabric of our communities, is in harmony with the surrounding built and natural environment, and encourages community interaction, and in rural areas preserves the county's rural character. Goal 15 states pursue policies that facilitate development in appropriate areas, including the designated growth areas, thereby protecting and conserving agriculture and environmental resources. Both the staff recommendation and PC recommendation are unfavorable. The reason for those unfavorable recommendations is that this request is not consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 and other applicable plans. Inconsistency with the master plan and the presumption of correctness of the master plan are the two main reasons for this unfavorable recommendation. Although the property is not currently in ag use, as I stated, the current use is school at the moment, and the school facility is a legally operating commercial use as permitted by section 158.070D of the county code and may continue as such indefinitely. It may also be used for a number of other non-agricultural uses, both residential and commercial, set forth by that same section in the code. Changing this property from ag zoning to C1 zoning category would allow all the additional commercial uses in section 158.082 to the county code on this property, which as stated before is in the priority preservation area, surrounded by ag zoning and protected land and large lot residential development properties. And because this was not envisioned by the 2014 master plan or the 2019 amendment, it has received the unfavorable recommendation. And as far as public comment, we have received no public comments for this property at this time. Is there any questions at the moment?
Yeah, I have a question. This is put forth by the people that own the school. They also own the land. The school's already on there. It looks like it takes up the majority of the land. Do we have any idea why they want to change the zoning? The school can be on there and use it the way it is. I don't understand why the request.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. They've kind of been limited in their responses throughout the process. Once we gave the initial unfavorable recommendation, so I'm not quite sure their reasoning behind the rezoning request.
Okay, thanks.
There, again, as part of this effort, there didn't need to be a rationale for the changes. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of the information as to the reasons why property owners were.
Right. I mean, I understand that. I just thought perhaps they might have said something because, I mean, it's a school now. It can be a school, and it hasn't been there that long. So I'm not thinking they want to tear it down and put up a commercial district. I don't know. It just seems unusual to me. That's why I asked. But if we don't have any information, that's fine. Thank you.
I suspect, and I didn't know this was in your district, Dennis. I could have sworn this was in my district, Stone in 97. I don't know. Maybe you go further out 97 than what I thought.
I didn't say it was my district. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's listed as being in your district. It's in
Oh, is it?
3 on here.
I don't think it was either.
No, but I don't know. Anyway, I think that's wrong. First
Yeah.
of all. And second, I think that these folks probably put in for it because it was zoned ag and they want it to be a school. And I think they probably just they got confused and, well, not confused, but I think they just wanted to lock it in. I don't think there's any intent to do anything with it anytime soon. They've got a very, very aggressive enrollment going over there. They got a lot of kids, and that is a brand new building. So to think that they do something else with it would be sort of ludicrous to me. So it's perfectly set up for what it is. As a matter of fact, they've added some recreational fields there too. They've got a soccer field and stuff there too. So I think they just wanted to lock it in to ensure that it is a school and not something that's perceived to be ag. That's my guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with that assumption. And I think they probably put that, District 3 because they want me to use their commissioner, but that's neither here nor there right now.
Yeah, I think they put it District 3 because there's a bike path to nowhere at Stone in 97.
Okay, the next application is I-204 2020-0029. The applicant is Roy D. Poole. The original application was to go from the ag to the I-2. This has since been changed as a request to go to the I-1. You can see from the location map that this is located on Old Westminster Pike. It is between Arnold and Reese Roads. The original request was for 4.99 acres out of the entire 112 acre parcel. The rest of the parcel is used for farming. As I said, the original request was for 4.99 acres. In addition to requesting the I-1, they have also revised the request to go down to 4.25 acres. And I'll go over that map in a few slides. This is the original request. The part that came off of it to make it go from 4.99 to 4.25 is that little notched part in the southeast corner so that it would basically, yes, thank you. It would basically square it off. This property is surrounded by residential uses. There's houses to the east and to the north and actually to the west on Old Westminster Pike. It has been a trucking business since at least 1965. It is a non-conforming use. Since then, there have been several requests granted by the BZA to expand the trucking operation. The most recent was in 2018 into 2019, where it was a 70% expansion of the area that was being used. This was granted, and at the time it was stated there's 24 trucks coming in and out of this property on a daily basis. But I don't believe that was a condition of the approval. It's just basically 24 trucks. So this is the entrance to the property. As you can see, the trucks enter and exit 24 hours daily. Next slide, please. This is a broader view of the trucking operation with the farm behind it. And the next slide shows the proximity of at least one of the houses that you have heard from those citizens regarding this application, but that is one of the property owners you've heard from. The existing zoning, as you can see, it is surrounded by ag zoning. Farther to the east, there is some C2, I believe. The future land use is ag. The properties on the other side of 140 are what you discussed several work sessions ago near the landfill. I'm not going to read the heavy industrial since they have changed this request to I-1, but it is very similar. The purpose and intent of the I-1 district is to provide locations for certain types of non-agricultural, non-residential, and generally non-retail commercial activities characterized by light manufacturing, assembling, fabricating, warehousing, wholesale distribution, and limited office and commercial uses, which are supportive and directly related to industrial uses. It's intended such districts be located in areas with access to major thoroughfares or other major modes of transportation, and depending upon the specific demands. And a trucking operation would be permitted in the I-1 district without any of the constraints imposed by the BZA. We found this not to be consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan. The future land use is agriculture, which is defined as areas where commercial and industrial use are limited to agribusiness, agritourism, and those uses intended to serve the agriculture industry or residents of the area while maintaining the character of the surrounding countryside. It is also not consistent with the goal of agriculture in the plan, which is to preserve at least 100,000 acres of agricultural land to support the production of agricultural products and promotion of related agribusiness. Both the staff and the Planning Commission gave this an unfavorable recommendation. The property has been in use as a trucking company since prior to 1965, as I already stated. While the area requested for the rezoning is limited to 4.99, now 4.25 acres of the 112 acre parcel, a portion of the requested property is abutting a residence. And that was the area of expansion of the non-conforming use. I already read what the I-1 district purpose is, but that is not consistent with the plan. And it is also not consistent with the future land use designation goals and objectives of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan. So also this property lies within the Liberty Reservoir watershed. Again, there were two requests made to change this request. One was from the I-2 to the I-1, and the other was to reduce the acreage to 4.52 acres. You can see from this map, and Hannah, I don't know if you can help me out, the original property is, yes, as if you follow her cursor, it was all the way to the purple line, the blue line all the way to the purple line. That was the 4.99 acres. Then it was reduced basically to square it off to where you see the blue line. And it's that entire, Hannah, can you go all the way around the property and show that it goes all, right, it goes all the way that around. The yellow line was the original non-conforming use boundary. And then the dotted black line was what it was expanded to in 2018, 2019. So currently the area that Hannah is showing you is what is permitted to be used for the trucking facility. And that is I think it's about 2.7 acres. So the increase would allow it to go farther in all directions, basically. Thank you. We've received numerous phone calls in opposition to this request. 15 written comments have been received with the following concerns: the impact on neighboring residential properties, 24-hour truck traffic, noise, vibration, dust, odor, lights, inconsistency with the surrounding homes, ongoing violations of a BZA decision, historic properties in the area, and that's also in your binder. I believe we provided that information. Ongoing deterioration of the road from the trucks and concern about residential wells. We also did receive, and that's in your binders as well, 9 written comments in favor of this application. Do you have any questions?
I been to the property. I've talked to the landowner. I've talked to property owners around, and Mary, as you said, depends who you talk to. They're either in favor, the great neighbors, or totally in opposition to it for whatever reason. But I talked to the landowner a little bit. His idea was if he goes to I-1, I mean, he's permitted to keep operating the way it is. His idea is, as he makes improvements on the property, it would be easier if he had the designation for it to make those improvements. And his intent is to leave the property to his son, and he wanted to straighten or an easier way to deal with it. But I-1 would give him the ability to deal with stormwater management and things in an easier fashion, and it as a conditional use is his major focus on that.
So I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Dick. He wants it because then he's going to put money into it?
Yes, he'll put money into it to make the improvements he needs with this. And, this has been, as long as I can remember, had trucks dealing with this, smaller maybe scale, but they've always dealt in dairy industry and trucking, and his father did. But in order to put money in, the change would allow him to do that. The way it is now, conditional use, he's afraid to invest, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 into it, knowing he could lose it. So that was the major focus.
Okay, thanks.
Just question, how could he lose it if he's continually using his trucking as conditional use, then he won't lose that conditional use? Am I correct with that, Mayor?
Just as a clarification, it's not a conditional use, it's a non-conforming use. So as long as he continuously operates it, it remains in its non-conforming use status. What he's trying to do is expand the boundaries of what the BZA approved for his non-conforming use. So that would actually allow him the potential to expand the business into those boundaries of the 4.52 acres.
Right. So as long as he continues using it as a trucking company, there's no way that he's going to lose that, because it's been since 65 or whatever. So he's not losing that at all, no matter what happens.
But
That's correct, unless he went 2 years without it being used for that purpose.
That's why I said the word continuous.
So,
Sorry.
and that's a good word you shared there, continuous. But many of the conversations we've been having regarding these type of properties, it's not necessarily the use of the property, but it's the funding of the property and the concern of getting the appropriate funding and the loans and the banking necessary when they're either non-conforming or conditional use. That's why many cases they want to make sure they get into that conforming use, and they're requesting a rezoning. This is just one of those properties. There's others just like it that we're looking at in the exact same, in the same way. So that's the concern I have is understanding the intent of the landowner to do what he or she wants to do in a property. That gets us to the next step. But when that landowner either decides to sell or do something, then it's already zoned for a much greater use. And we've got to be aware of that with eyes wide open of all of the uses permitted under whatever zoning. Because it'd be nice to do everything within the intent of the current landowner, but the fact is that we've got to do what's good for the landowner, the community, the neighbors, and then the future use of that piece of property, and keeping all those three things in mind as a balancing act. So.
Yeah, I'd have to chime in as well to back up both Commissioners Weaver and Rossi. And I have a couple non-conforming properties in my district. I want to visit the owners. And they've been operating in commercial fashion since before 1965. Their buildings are run down. There needs to be improvement. And I can sense in the owners that they wholeheartedly want to make a big capital investment in this county. They want to increase their values of their property. And all their site plans would have to be in conforming of the latest and greatest standards, which I think is a positive. So I think on the long term, I think a lot of these business owners aren't against the county. They're actually trying to help to improve the county. And I think we all need to take a lot of consideration to what they're trying to do. That's all not all negative, that they'd really like to make an investment and bring the standards of their property and their buildings up to the latest standards that we have in place.
All right, we're coming down the final stretch, and I apologize for going a bit out of order, but the next property is C205-2020-0028 Long Meadow Farm, LLC, also known as the Beatty property. The request is I1 to C2. So they're currently zoned I1 and they wish to go to commercial medium C2. So you all are very familiar with this property by now. This property is just north of 26 and east of 32 and off of Progress Way and south of Bennett Road. The property original request out of the 117 acre parcel was between 15 and 30 acres. This aerial image shows a blue boundary. That is the boundary of the land use as depicted in the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. If you can go to the next slide, please. As you can see, that boundary has changed. And actually, there's also another change that recently came through as part of the residential. So we will need to be readjusting this particular boundary for the commercial. The property owner has moved the northernmost blue line down slightly toward Progress Way and just kind of shifted the whole thing just a bit south to give more of a buffer between the Bennett Road community and the R20,000 request that this property is coming forward with now. Next slide, please. So again, the existing zoning of the property is I1. To the south, it's conservation currently, and beyond that is currently zoned R20,000, all part of that same 117 acre property. To the west is industrial and commercial high, and to the east is residential medium. Next slide. The future land use designation for this site is commercial high, but the request is for commercial medium. Surrounding the commercial high to the east is R20,000 and residential medium. And again, to the west is already developed industrial 1 and commercial high. Next slide. I'm not going to read the purpose and intent, but the C2 is meant for those medium type districts, not as intent as the C3. It's also intended to provide locations for compatible institutional and recreational uses, limited residential uses, such as you can do age restricted in the C2, and things that are a little bit heavier than associated with the C1 district. And again, biking and walking is encouraged in this area. Next slide. So the property meets the following goals of the 2018 plan: to pursue policies that facilitate implementation of the plan's vision, including development in appropriate areas where density limits that respect the overall vision of the community. This property is currently on water and sewer. There's sewers that go right through the particular property and water and other infrastructure that's projected to be available. Developing this property both residentially and commercially would also see the new development of the extension of Georgetown Boulevard as well from the south at its meeting point with the London town. Allow appropriately timed and scaled development, which supports and enhances and respects and reinforces the identity and character of the Freedom Community Planning Area, and facilitate economic development opportunities that support the local skilled workforce and entrepreneurs to expand the county's employment tax base. Both staff and Planning Commission gave this a favorable recommendation for C2, and Planning Commission also gave it a favorable recommendation with the revised boundary. That this request is consistent with the 2018 plan. The future land use as expressed in the plan, the situation within the Freedom Growth Area, its proximity to Maryland 32 and 26. And again, as I said, the availability of water and sewer make it an ideal candidate for commercial medium zoning. So we have received a lot of public comment even prior to this particular meeting. You in your booklet had a lot of comment regarding this site. The Department of Planning since has received numerous phone calls in opposition to this request since we distributed the comments in your booklet. And an additional 12 written comments have been received in opposition with the following concerns. And again, these comments were forwarded to you yesterday. Impact on the neighboring residential properties, inconsistent with the surrounding homes in the area, impact on schools, and issues with potential for senior housing that could come about as a result of the C2 zoning district. And so that is all the information that I have on this site. Do you have any other questions?
Obviously, this is a site that's getting a lot of attention. And I attended Thursday evening the Freedom District Community Group, FDCA. And there's a lot of interest in this property and how it ties to the request for residential. A lot of comments from the Planning Commission when we talked about the residential, when we talked about the rezoning industrial to commercial, was the very important intent to getting it right and looking at a planned effort in getting the residential and the commercial properties tied together in the right fashion, because it really does look like it could be the center of Eldersburg and the center of the south part of the county. 55 plus housing may be the right answer. Again, the challenge is that the developer in the beginning may not be the developer at the end, and whatever we zone it as has to be for the long-term vision of the Freedom Plan and of what's best for the county. We talked a lot about PUD, the planned communities. If we went in that direction, there would be changes that would have to be made by all of us on how we approach it, because it's not the legislation we have right now in the county does not allow for us to look at it that way, because it's focused on high density, and this is not a high density area. I'm just throwing out just some of the conversations I've been having. The group is for development, overall, just getting it right. Trying to get a very clear answer from them. That was the important part. And I finally received a pretty good document that they sent me actually this morning, and I will forward it to all of us, all of you, to sharing what their as a community view is in getting this right. But it's definitely getting a lot of attention. I'll put it, as we all know that. So, and I'll just leave it at that.
Does it, is it R40 housing on this?
No, so this is for the commercial medium request. In the text with commercial medium, age restricted is allowed. R40 is not a part of the site. The whole entire Beatty property, the 117 acres, is actually R20. The southern portion is currently zoned along Long Meadow.
And that would allow clustering on R20?
Clustering is allowed on R40, R20, R10, and R7500. So all the residential districts do allow a clustering.
But the way that's put together in this, that would increase the density on that, I believe, or could possibly. We don't know yet until it's absolutely done.
So under our current code, clustering does not increase the density. Under some of the recommendations for the text for, now this is just speaking about residential. There is a possibility it would allow up to the density of the entire property, but would not allow it to be more dense than what the district is zoned for.
Yeah, and also, Dick, I apologize because I am combining two things into one conversation, but it is important because we need to look at it together. It's a challenging area because if we look at one without looking at the other, then we're doing ourselves absolutely no good. And so we got to look at them both together. We got to look at the infrastructure and the roads and the network all together when we're looking at the zoning, because it's not going to be one without the other. So.
Now, I am very concerned about this. This is the last large property in that area to be zone developed. I mean, it'll be, and it has to be done right. I agree with you. I've talked to the property owners. I've been to the area. I've talked to some of the neighbors there, and it has to be done correctly. It almost has to be looked at together, how this whole thing's going to come together, because we could have a piecemeal and have one heck of a mess out of this if we're not careful. So, yeah, I have great concerns about it, and I do have concerns about R20 in this too. But we'll deal with that when we go to vote on it and look at things.
All right, are there any other questions before we move on? We have 3 more properties to get through this morning. So with that, I'm going to have Hannah Weber introduce the next property to you.
So the next property is EC 13-2020-0030. This is the Colburn-Holver Bay property, and the request is to go from conservation to employment campus. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this property is located just north of the Mount Airy corporate limits in the growth area. Yeah, as you can see, it's located along Ridge Road. And here is the aerial map. If you can see, it is improved with a single family home in the center of the property. And here you can see Ridge Road. And here is the location. This is taken off of Ridge Road. The existing zoning is conservation. It has been conservation since 1965. It is surrounded by conservation, ag, and R40. The future land use is employment campus. It is surrounded by conservation again and residential low density. And to the south, in the Mount Airy growth area, we have their office park district, which is very similar to the county's employment campus district. So as we said earlier, the employment campus district is to provide for and foster comprehensively planned employment centers in a campus-like setting to attract employers of highly skilled workers and primarily higher paying jobs, including but not limited to research and development, institutional office, flex space, and other light and limited industrial uses. So finding of consistency, we found this to be consistent with Chapter 15, promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities by focusing on the development and redevelopment of existing and vacant underutilized commercial and industrial properties. And we also found it consistent with, by zoning it employment campus lands to increase the non-residential economic tax base and encourage large-scale commercial employment developments to where infrastructure already exists or is planned. So staff gave this a favorable recommendation and Planning Commission gave this an unfavorable recommendation. We said it was favorable due to the consistency with the future land use as well as the goals and visions. Planning Commission gave this an unfavorable recommendation due to the concerns that the Town of Mount Airy Planning Commission and the Town of Mount Airy Town Council has expressed with the rezoning. So just some additional information is the Harrison Lightyear annexation. The request EC 13-2020 is located here, and it is touching the Harrison Lightyear annexation. This annexation is to be brought into the town of Mount Airy. The Mount Airy Town Council and Mount Airy Planning Commission have expressed concerns in this rezoning due to inadequate infrastructure, access to the property, future wells it may need, and impact on public support for the annexation. They say we urge the Carroll County Planning Commission to consider waiting on the Harrison Lightyear annexation outcome before approving this request for rezoning. And that is what the Planning Commission did. It was stated that the Mount Airy September 28th Planning Commission meeting that the town council vote on the annexation is estimated to be in April 2021. So they would prefer, so the town would prefer this rezoning wait until after that. And then the Mount Airy Planning Commission forwarded a favorable recommendation on the annexation on the October 26th Planning Commission meeting. We have received 9 comments in opposition of this rezoning request. They are concerned about increase in traffic, impact on adjacent wells, inconsistency of employment uses with large lot residential subdivisions, inadequate public infrastructure, cost to wildlife and other natural resources, and a reduction in property values. And do you guys have any questions?
This is another one of those very controversial properties. It's the last one in my district I'm scheduled to visit, and I'll be out there this afternoon to talk to the property owners and try to get a better feel of what they're looking at doing. But overall, I think there's a very strong opposition to this property, but I give everyone their due hearing.
Hannah, you did a very good job covering this, and you captured the Planning Commission's unfavorable recommendation and very well. And it's basically the town wants to get it right. They want to get the first property done right, the annexation to the south. And then once that's done, let's look more. But if they try to do too much at once, they feel from the mayor on down that it'll just get too complicated. So they rather put this one on hold, get the one piece done, the annexation, and then move on from there. So
that was an excellent summation. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more discussion.
All right, our last 2 requests of the whole comprehensive by request rezoning. The first one is C2 0520200031, and the one after this is 32. This one is Buckman and Associates LLC, and the request is R20,002 commercial medium. This property is located just west of Maryland 32 and south of Maryland 26 along that already developed stretch of corridor. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is an aerial image. Currently, the property is a house that has a business on it. If you recall, most of our R20,000 zoned properties along the stretch of 26 at one point or another was converted from some type of residential use to commercial use. Our current R20,000 zoning does allow for limited commercial uses, especially those smaller type uses and like home offices and accountant offices, but also a lot of medical office space is along this area. Some of the properties have been converted to full-on medical office complexes, while some are still in residential type housing, but have changed their site a little bit to accommodate for a small type of office for medical health. Next slide, please. So again, the current zoning is R10,000, and it's right next to the commercial medium designation just to the west of the Princess Shopping Center. And again, the future land use designation of this entire stretch is for commercial medium. I'm not going to read to you again what the commercial medium district is, but this would be the intent of this entire stretch. So the property meets the following goals from the Freedom Plan. Again, to pursue policies that facilitate the plan's vision. Goal 2 is to allow appropriately timed and scaled development that supports and enhances and respects and reinforces the community. And goal 4, to facilitate economic development opportunities. Next slide, please. Both staff and Planning Commission gave this a favorable recommendation. I apologize, I forgot to mention that the site is 0.39 acres. So again, it's less than a half acre in size, as well as many of the properties along that stretch. So again, this request is consistent with the Freedom Plan. The future land use as expressed in the plan, its situation within the DGA, its location on Maryland 26, that it is on water and sewer, making an ideal candidate for C2 zoning. In the next slide. No additional public comments have been received on this property. Do you have any questions? You did have one comment in favor that came in your packet at the beginning, but we have not received any calls or additional comments. And with that, I can go on to the next property, which are 3 parcels. This is C20520200032. And again, as I said, this is the last of the commercial by request properties. This is owned by Onofrio Semino trustee, and the request is R10,000 to C2. Again, this property is just, these series of properties, I should say, are just along that same stretch that the Buckman and Associates is located. So again, south of 26, west of Maryland 32. As you can see from the aerial imagery, again, these are already developed properties along this stretch. Next slide, please. And again, this would put everything into the C2 classification along this stretch of roadway. Next slide. So again, this would be compatible with the future land use designation for this area. The request is, again, I'm not going to go over the purpose of the C2 district. Next slide. Okay, the property meets the following goals, same as the past property from Buckman and Associates. It meets goals 1, 2, and 4 of the Freedom 2018 Community Comprehensive Plan. And I forgot to give you the acreage of all the properties, but together the parcels make up 1.067 acres. Next slide. Both staff and Planning Commission gave it a favorable recommendation, same as the Buckman and Associates for the same reasoning. And again, there are no zoning violations on this property. It's currently on water and sewer as well. And no additional public comments have been received for this series. And that is all I have for you. Are there any questions? All right, gentlemen. Well, we have made it through the by request comprehensive rezoning. Yay! There was a lot to go through over our last 3 work sessions. I appreciate your patience as we work through this with staff and some of our technical difficulties. It has been a wonderful, it's been interesting on how to learn all the technology and make sure that we get all the information to you and the public regarding these comprehensive rezonings. You had a listening session, if you recall, last month. Next is a public hearing. The public hearing will be held on December 3rd, virtually. It'll be much like the October 29th listening session. You have received all of the comments that we have on all of the properties to date. We will keep collecting comments until the public hearing record closes at our December 3rd public hearing. People are already signing up. So again, it'll be that same type of format. Then on December 8th, we have another work session with you all to discuss what you heard at the public hearing and see how you would like to proceed forward with any additional work sessions before you make any decisions regarding the changes to these properties. Also, we will also present to you, there's been 2 recent court cases about comprehensive rezonings and consistency with comprehensive plans. I'm working with the county attorney's office just to get you a little bit of information regarding that. I can't stress to you all enough, as you make your decisions, we do have a lot of properties that were not deemed consistent by the Planning Commission. And so we just need, I want to make you aware of what some of the problematic issues can be by rezoning some of those properties that were not deemed as consistent. So we'll go over all of that with you with the county attorney's office when we meet at our, our December 8th work session. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Linda, first, thank you very much. Very helpful. I really appreciate all the work that you put into this. Second, the public hearing, I'm hoping will be done similar to a listening session where all the comments on a particular property are presented at the same time. It's so much easier to follow that way.
Yeah, so what they do is when the people submit that they want to comment on a particular property, I have a system with Chris Swam that he sends me a spreadsheet, and then I organize the spreadsheet by property. So for the public hearing, we will go in order of the property numbers from 1 to number 32. And we'll make sure that we take elected officials first. I apologize from the last meeting not doing that, so we'll make sure that we adhere to that rule as well.
All right, anything else? Anything else for Linda or staff? Okay. With that, I think we're done. And again, echoing Dennis's, and you've heard us all say it, Linda, we appreciate all the work that you and staff have done. We certainly have a ways to go here on this, but we're getting ever so closer. So we appreciate all that you've done. It's been a relatively painless adventure so far. And we're getting a lot of information on these properties. And if nothing else, folks across the county are becoming very familiar with places that they didn't know before. So that's huge too. So very, very, very well done on everybody's behalf. All right. With that, we're done until 1 o'clock. Roberta, do you have anything? I see you lit up. Okay.
No, just in case I was needed. Thank you.
Okay. So, I don't necessarily think we need a motion to adjourn, but because this was a work session, but we'll take it anyway, just to make it official. And then we'll get back at 1 o'clock with our open session.
Or should we just motion to recess till 1 or motion to adjourn?
Let's adjourn the work session because this is different than what we're going to do at 1. So let's just adjourn it.
So I'll second what Commissioner Weaver said.
All right. All those in favor? We'll see everybody at 1 o'clock. Thanks again.
Same meeting, everybody.